Hello everyone. Okay, let's dive into topics. As I start to talk about specific silos in which we as care managers step in and offer advice and resources, I'm going to use a lot of examples from my clients to make it feel a little bit more real. So today I'm going to be talking about discharge from hospital or skilled nursing facility community, or even a hospice community. These facilities are all run by the government and they have rules that they have to follow. And so today I want to be specifically talking about what to do if you or your loved one is facing a discharge from one of these communities, and what your rights are and how you can appeal the process. So specifically, what I'm talking about is for Medicare and Medi-Cal recipients. If you have a different insurance that isn't under Medicare or Medi-Cal, and that's Medicaid in California, then you're going to actually have a different appeal process, and it's going to go through your insurance. So again, today we are focusing on what to do if you're facing a discharge and you are a Medicare with an Advantage plan or straight Medicare or Medi-Cal, okay? So oftentimes as care managers, we get these kind of frantic, panic phone calls in moments where a loved one or an individual themselves is facing a discharge. And it can be really scary because oftentimes we feel like it's not beneficial to discharge so fast, or there's still a lot of questions. There is a series of reasons why people would like to stay in these communities for a longer period of time, and it's not being agreed upon by the medical community, the hospital. Usually the doctor has to sign off on a discharge in any of these communities. And so you're right, as a Medicare or Medi-Cal recipient, is to contest the discharge. Now, usually what happens is within these settings, some administrator will come to you about 2 to 3 days before a discharge is coming down the pipeline. They will usually start asking questions about what the discharge plan will be, where you want to be discharged to, and you'll get a feel. You can ask them when they feel like the discharge is going to happen. They have to give you at least a 2-day notice. Now, to start the process of appealing a discharge, they will give you a piece of paper, and I have notes here because it is such a long, crazy name. And to back up really quickly, this piece of paper actually had to be given to you when you were admitted to any of these communities. When you were admitted to the hospital or a skilled nursing facility or a hospice community, you had to just sign a bunch of papers, and in all of those papers was what they called the Know Your Rights. It's usually labeled, quote, an important message from Medicare about your rights, unquote. And again, the hospital, usually within 2 days of your admission and prior to your discharge, will hand this notice to you. And sometimes it's also called an important message from Medicare. So again, it doesn't scream discharge or anything like that. So be very aware that the paperwork that you signed upon admittance, one of those papers was your rights on how to discharge, and you can ask. Now, legally, technically, they do not have to give that paperwork to you again when they're starting to talk about discharge. They do have to verbally tell you that you are going to be discharged within 48 hours. They have to give you 48-hour warning. but legally. They do not have to give that paperwork to you again within that 48-hour time window. So if they don't give it to you, that's when you request a copy of your discharge rights and how to appeal. And so again, the appeal process has to happen by noon. You have to make a phone call to a third-party company called Livanta, Livanta, and that is the third-party company in the state of California, along with other states, but we're in California, so I can specifically talk about California. It is the third-party company that will be managing your appeal, and it has to, this is very imperative, you have to call the phone number that's on the Medicare rights paperwork by noon of the date of your discharge to request a fast, what they call a fast acting appeal, which will happen and you will get the results of your appeal within 24 hours. And that's what you want to start with, because that moves fast. And then if your appeal is granted, you can continue your stay. So request that paperwork. I have the phone number that I just want to read it to. Again, Livanta, Livanta, is the company that you will be calling, and their phone number is 1-877-588-1123, and we'll put it in the information below. But the process is you have to call this number again by noon on the date of your discharge. And what will happen is they will ask you a series of questions about what your Medicare number, you have to have all of your information, your social security number, and you'll have to have a hospital information code. So you'll have to ask the administrator what that is in the hospital or the skilled nursing facility that you're staying at. And then someone over the phone will ask you why you feel like you should be allowed to stay in these medical facilities for longer. Just a quick tip is you always want to state that if you feel like your medical reasons haven't been resolved, if you still have questions, if you still have unmanaged pain, if you're in a skilled nursing facility and you still feel like you are progressing to the point where you are actively getting better, you want to really emphasize that when you're stating why you're making this appeal. The appeal, what happens is that person gathers all the information, then they request all of the paperwork from the medical facility that you're at, and a third-party medical team, usually comprised of doctors and nurses, looks over all of the notes, looks over the insurance notes and why the insurance feels like they no longer feel like they need to pay for care or rehab, and then they will make a ruling or a judgment. Now, while this process is going along, you can stay at the facility, either the hospital or the skilled nursing facility that you are at no cost. They cannot charge you while the appeal is going on, but usually the appeal comes back by noon the following day, so within 24 hours, and the appeal will either be granted, and at that point the medical team has to resume medical care and physical therapy and occupational therapy if you are at a skilled nursing facility, or they may side with the insurance, and at that point, if you choose to stay any longer than that, you may be charged private pay. So again, you are contesting the discharge in you're contesting payment, essentially. You're contesting that you would like your insurance to keep paying. It's not necessarily discharge in the fact that you have to leave. You never have to leave any of these medical facilities. It's just a matter of if they start charging you privately and you have to start paying privately out of pocket, or if your insurance will continue to cover. Now, if you do lose the fast appeal, you have the right to appeal again through Livanta, and that's a longer appeal process. But at that point, at that date, that's when the bills where you have to pay privately will start. And if you lose the long-term appeal, they will charge you that whole stay. But within the fast-acting appeal, that 24 hours, you do not have to pay for that extra 24 hours that you're staying in any of these communities. I want to dive in a little bit about Livanta because I've used, I've had to call them many times with my clients. We're going through it right now with a client who's being discharged from a skilled nursing facility. Oftentimes I call on behalf of the client or the client's loved ones to help with the process. And again, verbiage is very important. You want to stress that there still is a medical need, that there still is a benefit for medical care at that point. And I will say I like Livanta. I think that they're easily accessible. They, I usually like the agents that I talk to, and they are rolling out now a new smartphone app that really makes it easy to reach the call centers and to file appeals or complaints. Now, yeah, that's a side note, is that Livanta, again, is the go-to for when you want to contest the discharges, but it's also who you want to contact if you feel like your medical team has made any mistakes, any medical mistakes. If you picked up an infection while you were at any of these facilities, you absolutely want to call Livanta or download the app and make a complaint through Livanta on the application. Any wrong treatment or care that you weren't happy about that you would like to complain, Livanta is your go-to. Really, any other healthcare errors, anything that you are worried happened during your medical stay at any of the medical facilities, you know, hospitals, hospice centers, skilled nursing facilities, Livanta is your go-to. And again, if you are often in medical facilities and often going up against discharge or seeing that you are not being adequately cared for, download the app. It's just a really, really helpful tool, and it makes it very easy for all of the paperwork that you're going to have to do. And I'll put a link to the QR code if you want to download that. So I think that really kind of covered the basic umbrella for contesting a discharge. Again, when we're talking about contesting the discharge, it's really, it's all about your contesting on if insurance will continue to pay for your medical stay or if it will stop and you would have to pay privately. Again, you do not have to leave any of these communities, especially if you have no safe place to discharge to. You do not have to leave, but you could possibly be start to get billed privately if your discharge is contested and ultimately the third-party Livanta company agrees with the insurance and with the hospital or the other medical facility. Then at that point, your insurance no longer has to pay and you have to start paying privately. Okay, I think that's it on this topic. Thanks, everyone.